Yo, it's Captain, and we're going to talk about the ending of 2.1 Star Rail chapter. What is it? 2? Not chapter 3. No, it's chapter 3. It's 2.0, 2.1, part 2, whatever. But chapter 3 finally beat the end of 2.1, the current patch, the big Aventurine story. We're going to talk about that today in the Star Rail Captain's Log 2.1-7, because it's the yes, it took me 7 streams to beat this. We averaged about an hour a stream, an hour of content gameplay per stream. There's about 6 hours of content. Look, the first time was doing patch stuff, new patch stuff, so all right, that one didn't count. But we did do essentially the whole finale today, from where... So the last thing we had just finished was Aventurine's monologue. Aventurine's soliloquy. I don't know. The Aventurine only section. Aventurine and the Christmas Carol. Where he talked to the ghost of his future and the ghost of his past. And it was really interesting just to dig into that character. And I assumed we were doing that because he was going to meet his end by the end of the patch, right? This patch was kind of all about him, and we even started seeing flashbacks to when he was born. I figured, so well, we're just going to complete the whole story. Hell, I think we're going to kill him by the end of this. We kind of did. There's a lot to I'm just going to go through this chronologically. I still haven't wrapped my head around it all, because I guess I didn't quite tell. All right, look, I've been trying to tell you where we were. So there's right after that scene with Aventurine, then you have a train gang moment, and Aventurine comes on the big speakers and says, "Yo, come to the show. I'm gonna show her everything." It's this big play, and you go into an instance, and then it's the end. You fight a boss, and it shows you all these cutscenes that just wrap up the whole patch. Not the chapter, not chapter 3 Pinoconi, because I'm wondering how many more patches there's going to be, because I feel like there's at least 2 more. I feel like there's at least 2 more big sections of this chapter to go. I don't know what we're calling the patches. Are we calling them acts? Acts make more sense within the patch, because I feel like this was the last act of the patch, the finale. I don't know. But I'm not quite sure. There's a lot to talk about. I'm not quite sure how we're going to handle it all. I'm just going to go in order. I have not wrapped my head around everything. I have not fully understood everything. I'm actually hoping to talk about it on stream tomorrow and just try to piece some stuff together, see what theories people have and whatnot. Because, well, they kind of concluded Aventurine's story for the moment. Probably. And then they throw 2 twists at you. I mean, you could consider the conclusion of Aventurine's story a twist. Then they just throw 2 twists at you out of nowhere. And that's how they finish it. And they say, then they say tune in next time. And it's really hard. This is Pinoconi. It's hard to understand. It's hard to figure out what's going on. But that's the whole point. That's the mystery. There is layers to this thing. There's, Candy Fun Town on top. And then it's like, but there's some dark underbelly. And then it just keeps going. And there's that for the story. But then there's also that for there's that for the setting, but there's also that for this particular story, because we've got all these players at play, we've got all these factions in play, and we don't quite know what they all want. They're saying one thing, but they probably are meaning another, but they probably have, like, everybody has this underlying motivation, right? Like, everybody's after the Watchmaker legacy and stuff. So there's layers here. There's just layers everywhere. It's just a huge mystery, is how they're playing this, and it's quite fun. my biggest concern remains that we go through all this and we have all these, because it's a roller coaster today of these twists and stuff. My concern is we go through all these and, you know, it doesn't, so much stuff is coming out of left field. Sometimes you wonder, are they going to pull this off? Are they going to tie this together and make it satisfying? There are things that give me hope for that, like that whole section we had with digging deep into Aventurine. You don't do that unless you really care about explaining some fine details of your story, and you usually don't care about that unless you want people to really understand it so they can get to the end where you need to be. You usually don't take big sections and just explain them unless you feel like somebody needs it to get to the next part. Or I don't know, or somebody just really liked Aventurine. They're like, I'm gonna write his whole backstory. You never know. But they've shown me enough that I feel like this could wrap up quite well. And I cut them, and I cut them some slack. I give them some leeway because the Elysian, no, it's the Elysian realm. It's Elysium, everlasting. Was the arc in Honkai, was one of the best, little story sections I've experienced. It's really up there and how good it was, particularly if you take it in light of the whole Elysian realm arc of the 3 chapters of Elysian realm, and then the Elysium everlasting, which was a arc in the main story of Honkai Impact. Very good. And I guess the lead writer or something on that is the lead writer on this. Somehow there's a guy who was involved in a lot of that that's also involved in this. I don't know his particular position. So, I give him some leeway. It is kind of, I do think it's interesting that the Elysium, I'll never get it, dude, everlasting arc was essentially a murder mystery of people are dying one at a time and you're trying to figure out who's doing it. And here in this story, we have people dying and we're trying to figure out what's happening. Just thought that was an interesting tie-in. All right, we gotta break it down. This video I don't want this video to be forever. Okay. And it might be because I just don't have the organization. I still haven't figured it out. I haven't sat down and worked out the mysteries. So I guess we'll just talk about it. I'll just talk about it and give my thoughts on each piece, and we'll see where we go. Longest preamble ever. Captain Slow confirmed. So it starts out where you and the train gang, I guess the train gang and Acheron, because she's on your side now, go to the stage that you go to the stage that Aventurine says, I'm going to show everybody the secrets that Pinoconi's a lie. Come to the stage and I'll show you. You go, but you're the only ones there because apparently they've cleared out everybody else. They made everybody else leave. So he's not really going to get to show the world everything, but he doesn't care because you showed up and that's what he wanted. I actually watched this again. I actually just watched this again. I watched one of those documentary playthroughs where they don't talk or anything. They just play the story. Which is how I know there's 6 hours of content, because the people who do that, bless the people who do that. God, it's so good. I just love that documentation. But I just watched it again to just refresh myself, and I don't know if it helped, but it was gripping. We get there, and he says he's going to reveal everything. He's going to reveal death to everyone. He's going to reveal that everyone can die in the dream, and that Pinoconi's lying because he's going to detonate our Stellaron, because remember, he knows our secret that Trailblazer has a Stellaron. He's going to detonate our Stellaron, he's going to kill everybody, and then we're going to get blamed for bringing death to the dream, and it's going to destabilize the whole thing. And then, he doesn't say this part, but we know he wants to discredit the family and destabilize Pinoconi because his whole goal is to get the IPC to be able to buy Pinoconi. Right, that's what they want to do. They want to buy it. They originally owned it, the prison colony, and there was a revolt. Then there was a revolt, and then they lost it, and then their goal is to get it back. That's the IPC's goal. That's what he's ultimately trying to do. And so it seems like, he's gonna reveal death is happening to everybody, and it's interesting because we know that Sunday knows, he had a big list of people who were dying. So this has been going on for a while. Later, this is revealed to be part of a trick. This is not what he's gonna do, and you kind of are like, he's probably bluffing, and he is. He is. We'll find that out. But he says that, and then we start a boss fight. We have a really cool scene where Trailblazer pulls out his Amber Lord lance, and I'm like, are you kidding me? He always has the bat. Now he just why is he using the lance now? And I'm like, you put me in an instance that's just the boss fight, and they tell you to pick your team before the instance, and they tell you what he's weak to, and it's just fire is not in there. So of course my Trailblazer, because I play with an immersive team, because I like it's fun when the team I beat the boss fight with is also the team in the cutscene. So my Trailblazer, of course, is set up to use a bat. All of a sudden he pulls out the lance out of nowhere. I thought they forgot he had that. But it is kind of interesting because he points it at Aventurine, and Aventurine comments on it like, oh, you know, that lesser stone from the Amber Lord, because right, all the stone hearts have stones from the Amber Lord. The IPC follows the Amber Lord, and that lance you have from Belobog also follows the Amber Lord, Kleepoth. So it's kind of like you're using Kleepoth against him when he's already big Kleepoth man, right? And so it's kind of, I don't know, it's just a nice pairing. I don't know if it means anything or it's just a nice pairing. But he then pulls out his stone, which is the Aventurine, which he admitted to earlier, where he had shattered and is weaker, and he, you know, uses its power and he turns into a boss. Not a big boss or anything. He looks you know what he looks like? He looks like Joker from Persona 5. He looks like Joker's, I haven't played Persona 5. I watched a playthrough of it, but not enough to know what Joker's persona is, but it looks like Joker's persona. That kind of masked fool. Like fool is in Joker, as a Joker is a fool. Except, you know, he's got a top hat and he's got a nice suit and like a popped collar, and Aventurine kind of looks like that, except much more peacocky, because he's the high stakes gambler, right? He's the big man on the casino. So he consumes his Amber Lord stone and becomes the boss, and you fight him. And I don't know, it's very cool. What do I think about the boss fight? I liked it. It had a gambling mechanic, which was pretty fun. He had a mechanic where he would throw dice out, and he would roll them, and then he'd get a number, and then he would trap you in phase one opponent, and in phase 2 your whole team, and you would have to attack the dice to roll them yourself and see if you could beat his number. And if you beat his number, you got a free ultimate, and if you lost his number, you got like a damage taken increased debuff, you got insta attacked, and you got impaired. It was really bad. And so it became a skill point fight where can you save enough skill points to try to win the rolls? Because is it everybody in the game? At least the team I was using, if I didn't use a skill point, I could attack one of the dice, which meant you only got to roll one. So your number was likely to be lower than his because he rolled 2. But if you had an AoE, you could hit both dice and roll 2 numbers and have a better chance at beating his number. But so the way my team worked is, well, I had to use skill points to do that. And so we get to this, and I was like, ooh, do I have skill points for this? But particularly in phase 2, where you've got to do your whole team. And I found an effective strategy for phase 2 was to save my skill points until he did that, and then blow my skill points so that and in some cases my ultimates, because I was using March, and she of course doesn't have an AoE ever, but if you can get her ultimate as an AoE. Blow everything to roll those dice to win the dice roll, and if you win the dice rolls, you get a bunch of free ultimates, right? So then you can do damage to him that way, so you don't damage him with your skill points, you save your skill points, use them to roll the dice, and then you damage him with the free ultimates afterwards. It worked out. I actually didn't have too much trouble with this fight. I think it's because I played it smartly and just made sure I kept the shield up from March on everyone. But I play at EQ3, so it's not super crazy, and I got my team mostly leveled up all the way. I think the only thing that's not is their relics. They might be not they're not all gold, and even if they are, they're not all like plus 15 or anything. I think everybody's at least plus 9, and a lot of them are plus 12 for things. I forget. So maybe it was just my stats were good. But I liked this one because it was interesting and it was engaging and it wasn't like super hard. The Sam boss we only won because of cheese, because I had March, and Sam, because he hurts himself, he couldn't break through March's shield, so every other turn I would shield, and the turns in between I would attack to get the skill point back, and then we just waited a very long time until Sam burned himself out. It was cringe, but it was funny. We didn't have to do that this time. And the bug boss, which was the boss on the patch before that, Scarbaraz or whatever the hell his name is, was really hard for me. I had a lot of trouble with it. I think it took me like a whole stream to figure out how to beat him. I tried a lot of different teams where I finally just went for the really, really lame cheese strategy where you just don't attack him whenever he can spawn a bug. So you just play really slowly. It was also cringe, but we got through it. The more fun strategy is to just have a really good AoE and you just constantly attack him, and so he's spawning a lot of bugs, but then you just blow them all up with your really good AoE, and it puts a huge damage debuff on him because he gets debuffed every time you blow up one of his bugs. Anyways. So my thoughts on the boss fight were I liked it. I thought it was a pretty good level of challenge because I felt like I had to pay attention and play it properly, but I also didn't feel like I was going to lose it a million times until I tried 15 different teams. And I thought that was pretty good because I got a satisfying story moment out of it without really slowing down the story. So then you kill him. And he rises up. It goes to a cutscene. It rises up into the air. It has a cool cutscene where you're like fighting him with the lance, and Himiko's dropping lasers, which is cool because Lance wasn't, but Trailblazer and Himiko were both on my team. I switched out Welt for Acheron because I don't have Welt. But I think really if you had Welt instead of Acheron, it would be very effective because what happens is technically Acheron doesn't use her ultimate until this cutscene. And he rises up in the air and he says, you think you've beat me, but I've still got one play. And he points at Acheron. And then he goes up into the air and he like tears the ceiling open. He tears the dream open, and all these chips start getting ready to fall down like he's gonna nuke the place, right? And Acheron steps up and she's like, all right, I have to end this. And she officially, for the first time, although I had been doing it the entire boss fight, uses her ultimate, unsheathes her blade, goes super cool mode, and does the big katana strike, and like this whole bubble forms, and everything like actually gets nuked. It's really cool. It's really cool. It just blows the whole place up. Awesome cutscene. And then it like fades to black, and we go straight. Oh, actually, I missed a scene, but from that point, it fades to black, and then you see Aventurine, and he's just like in blackness because he got nihility. He got deleted. And we do know it's officially forever confirmed nihility because I think was it in the scene before this. I think everybody knew it already, but I think in the game they haven't actually directly said it until today. And in that little scene before she decides to unsheath her blade, she has a little flashback, and she's talking with, it sounds like an old man, they don't name him, and she's talking about what are they talking? I don't even know. She's just talking about how she's lost them, like, presumably everybody she's cared about, because I've read the other material they put out with her, and you kind of know the backstory of her like twin planet around the black sun, you know, and they the twin planets ended up fighting each other, and she was the only victor. She came out like alone and realized it was this damn black sun that caused this whole problem because it's threatening to kill them all. And so she attacks the sun. She's now the most powerful entity like ever because she won this arms race and this war that these two planets were fighting. And at the end of it, she gets like the super katana, and then in her frustration, she just attacks the black sun. Presumably, that's when it noticed her, and she became an emanator of the black sun, which is the nihility. And so they kind of have this little flashback with her talking to this old man about her decision to go to Pinacone, and he says they won't let her in because the eon she follows isn't like the other ones. And that's when they kind of confirm it's the nihility. It's either that or it's right with Aventurine right afterwards. I can't remember, but they do confirm it. And this guy's telling her like, it doesn't matter what you do. Everyone falls in its shadow. And she's like, some people rise up out of the shadow, which tells you she's the emanator of nihility, but she's fighting against it, right? Which is kind of what we all assumed. And the old man says she just has like a little bit of color left because the emanators of nihility the nihility is all about erasing things. It just erases them. It ends them. It's not destruction. It doesn't go destroy them. It just erases them. It removes them from existence. And so the whole theme with Acheron and this nihility thing seems to be ending things, people dying, right? And that's part of the story, right? People are dying in the dream, right? So it's all this ending stuff. Every time she's talking about ending, and we're about to have a big scene with her and Aventurine, and it's going to be about ending, dying. So, if you're an emanator in nihility, you're getting erased. You're slowly getting erased because that's the power you have. And presumably that happened when she tried to kill it with this thing. And I think she confirms in this little talk, somewhere in one of these two scenes, she confirms that she has one line that makes me feel like her goal is to end the nihility, right? She wants to bring about nihility's end. She wants to kill the damn thing because, I mean, that's kind of how, it's probably how she became an emanator, right? Like if that little flavor story they gave out was the real truth, and she really did attack the black sun with, because it's a big black hole, nihility is, with the sword, and that's how she became an emanator. Yeah, she still wants to kill the thing. She still hates it. So I want an Acheron chapter now. I don't know if the next one's gonna be. It's either gonna be her or who's in the next scene with one of the twists. Because I really am just trying to like, why does she want the Watchmaker's legacy? Right? Why does she come to Pinacone? What does she do? What is? Does she could try? She probably thinks she can't bring back the people she's lost. So is it just a revenge thing? Is she really just trying to kill the nihility? Does she think the Watchmaker's legacy will help her do that? I have no idea. I have no idea, but I'm super interested in Acheron. I always have been. They know this is one of their premier characters. Like, I don't know, how do you want to call it? Their anthology character, their franchise character. This character appears in most of their games. It's May from Honkai. Hersher Thunder, Hersher of the Origin, Hersher of, I don't know, a million other things. By the end of it, everybody's Hersher everything. But it's also Raiden Shogun from Genshin, and now we have Acheron. So people, there's an expectation this character is going to be really cool, and I think they knew that, and I think they stepped up to the plate so far, and she is really cool. And I'm glad I saved my Jades for her and pulled for her because I got her, and she's really cool. And she's really cool in these scenes. So then, probably the biggest scene of the finale is Aventurine in the blackness, and then it kind of zooms out, and it's raining, and there's this lake, because there's always this lake, and then there's the black hole behind him. And he's like, did I succeed? I'm like, dude, why do you have a death wish? But that's not what he meant. It's not what he meant. He meant did I succeed in dying in the dream? Because Acheron shows up to guide him. You know, you get the idea that she kind of like guides people to her end, to their ends. She doesn't like that she's an emanator nihility. She doesn't like that things are ending, but she seems like she tries to be compassionate about it and help people deal with their ends. And so here she is with Aventurine in this kind of space between spaces before he goes to his end. He has like a little flashback through his life as he's walking before she shows up. So he's, you know, it's very much like he's dying. And she shows up and they have this conversation that really just closes Aventurine's story, which I think is nice. And leaves it open that it might not end in. But they kind of have this conversation about death. And you know Aventurine's had a death wish. He reveals that his plan, she asks him his plan. I guess she shows up. She seems to show up to, one, try to figure out what his plan is because she asks him. And then two, attempt to save his life. Which, again, what is her desires? What is she trying to do here? Why does she want these two things? Because she tells him a way to get out of this. She tells him a way to not be at his final end before this scene is over. But mainly, it does two things. It gives the conclusion to Aventurine's story. They have this talk about death and the meaning of life, and they have this also conversation about what is his actual goals, what was he doing, so that we kind of know what's going on with the plot. What's going on with the plot was his big gamble was not show the world that death exists in the dream. His big gamble, Acheron says what he was trying to show was that death doesn't kill you in the dream. He's like, she says, you just wanted to prove to everybody something that they thought they didn't know or thought that they had already realized wasn't true. You just want to show everybody that death doesn't exist in the dream. And this is one of those things they've been hinting at the whole patch, that at the very least Firefly isn't dead. They've been hinting at that. That you dying in the dream doesn't really kill you. It might put you in a coma. It might do something horrible. There might be some big consequences, but you're not dead. Right? And there's that big list of people who died. But you're like, well, maybe Robin's actually dead because Sunday's really pissed off and she's gone, and all the hints seem to be pointed at Firefly, not Robin. So we know these two people that died. But then again, all the reasons for Firefly not to have been dead, wouldn't they also apply to Robin? So we're like, is anyone dying? And then right here, she says it. There's what you were trying to prove, that you can't die in Pinacone, not in the dream. And you're like, what? Does that mean nobody's dead? And then you're like, wait, didn't she just delete Aventurine in the dream? Does that mean he's not dead too? Right? It's everything's a lie. So there's that. And then the reveal is, well, you didn't, and Aventurine says, well, yeah, proving to people that could die in the dream wouldn't even cause a big enough uproar for things to destabilize and the IPC to win. And then Acheron's like, oh, you're after something deeper. You wanted to die to see what was there. And they kind of have this little hint conversation. They still didn't fully explain it, but Aventurine starts talking about how the hint he got from Sparkle and whatever. And he's like, I knew if I died, then I could see what the other people have seen, and that would get me to the real Pinacone. That would get me to the Watchmaker, right? The exile. And that's kind of all the hint they give you as to what he's really wanting. They do give you another hint that it has something to do with the Trailblazers' true identity, because they both mention it, but they don't really say what that meant to them or why they're talking about it. So I think that's a hint for the future, that there's something about you and your true identity that is at play here, and is maybe like why you were invited in the first place. Unless it's like a double play on the audience and they weren't talking about the Trailblazer, and you're gonna, by the time it's all over, you're gonna realize they're talking about somebody else or something. But yeah, so there's all that. So that's kind of the major plot stuff. So he wanted to die, not just because the man has a death wish, but because he wanted to see what was there's something past the dream that if you die in the dream you can get to. He thinks so it seems like he's after the watchmaker's legacy. That's the truth he wants to reveal that will destabilize Penacony. And at this point we kind of know that maybe that's true because the watchmaker is opposed to the family. They're not on the same side. So perhaps his legacy, even if it is just the truth, might just be something that will throw a lot of shade at the family and destabilize that. So, you know, the reveal that actually he's also just after the legacy kind of fits here because, well, maybe that legacy is a damning evidence against the family in current day Penacony. So it makes sense they'd be after that. But so that's the story bit. Then they have a little conversation about death, and he talks about his other death wish, which it seems like, after we had that whole scene with him in Clock Studios, the whole scene where he actually just has a death wish, where he, the way I took it is it seemed like he felt like he should have died a million times over. He felt like he should have died with his family back on Sigonia, and that's why he sees the ghost of Christmas Past is that little kid who's just in Dreamtown with his family having a good time. It's like he feels like he should have died back then, but he didn't. And the only reason he could think of is because his mom told him he was lucky. Because he was blessed by Gaia the Triclops, and he was lucky, which is the god they worship there. And so he's always bet his life, and he's always won the bets. And so he just keeps escaping death. And it seems to be the way he copes with that. He's like, well, yeah, I'm lucky. I always win. I should have died a million times ago, so who cares if I bet my life? I'll win every time. And if I don't, whatever, I should have already been dead. And if I win big, because I'm a big baller gambler, right? There was a little bit of a hint that maybe he has some insecurity, so he bets really big to prove he's not a coward, because everyone died and he ran away because his big sister told him to leave while they did the fight, and the IPC would help. And the IPC didn't seem to help because everybody died. But they did get him in the end, and he got out. So, there's all this kind of going on. So he has this conversation with Acheron. He's like, well, you have a lot of experience for this. What's the point? What's the point if we're all just going to die? And she gets mad. She's like, I don't believe that. Neither do you. It's not pointless. Screw that. And then she talks about how, sure, everybody's gonna meet their end. Nihility's gonna claim everybody, but what does it matter? There's plenty of things that people can't change. The whole point is, you're preparing. Your life is preparing for death, so that when that end comes, it has a different meaning for everyone because of the preparation they did. The life they led. Basically, it's a nice philosophy. You can believe, you can believe things you want. I my own personal beliefs. I don't think I need to explain them. Simply we're on here to love others and to love God. That's my beliefs. But you can have all sorts of concepts about, whether you agree with this or not. But I think it was really, really nicely done. Because somebody who's constantly facing death, like Acheron, right? She'd have to find some sort of meaning. She'd have to find some sort of point. And I think that's a really nice point that she found. That it's like, no, sure, everybody meets their end. It's not important. She fought it. She was really mad when he suggested his life didn't have a purpose or something. And she said, no, the whole thing, everything you do, colors that ending and gives it a different meaning, so that, because she sees everybody's ends, and she can see every end is different. Every end has its own significance, has its own meaning, has its own purpose. And it seems like she lost everybody she cared about. So of course, all those people, her whole planet of people, they all had purpose, they all had meaning, and it meant something. It wasn't life's pointless, we're all just going to die, right? In fact, she says it's pointless to think that way. So I thought that was really cool. And I think it actually helped Aventurine because, sure, he was trying to die in the dream, but the man also just had a death wish. Right? He really didn't value his own life because of all this stuff, that we know. And she leaves. She gives him a little hint. She's like, look, you need to get out of this. This is not your end. You need to get back to where you should be. Again, why is she telling him this? She wants him back. She wants him not dead. Maybe she doesn't want anybody to die, but she specifically, tries to get information out of him and then tries to make sure he lives through this. And then she tells him, you got what you need to get out of this in your pocket. Whether you do it or not, it's up to you. And because she clearly doesn't like him. And then she leaves. And then it reminds you that, of course, he has the Dr. Ratio prescription in there. And it even reads it. It's like, death's not the thing you got to worry about in dream. It's dormancy is the thing that you can't do in a dream. Which I don't know what that means, but basically he has his get out of jail free card. So as far as we know, he's going to dive into the death behind the dream, try to find his answers, pop the pill, and get back out. Right, but there's another little scene later where they hint it's good. Oh my god, this video is gonna be forever. The I don't have time for this. So then there's a nice little finish to Aventurine story, because this was the Aventurine patch. It's a nice little finish where Acheron's walked away and he's gonna go do his stuff, but then the little Aventurine, little baby Aventurine comes up, little Kakavasha, and says, you're not gonna stay, mister? And he's like, no, I'm not gonna stay. I'm not gonna stay in the dream. And he's like, well, but why, mister? And he's like, because my family isn't here. Your family is. Your fake dream family is. He doesn't say that, but he says my family's not here. And he's like, well, where are they? And he's Aventurine's, they're very far away. And he has a touching thing where he's like, I will get to them at some point. I will know it's the right time when the rain falls, and I know Gallagher Triclops is calling me home or whatever. I forget what he said, but it's that rain, because that's how they, he was born on a rainy day in a planet that doesn't rain. That's how they knew he was lucky. That's how he knew he was blessed by Gallagher Triclops. That's why his mom told him that. And then it also rained on another very important day in his life where he was lucky. And I think it rained on the day where did it rain on the massacre day where everyone died? Either way, it was in the story earlier. So he's like, no, I'll know. It'll rain and I'll know. I thought that was really touching. And then he has a little moment where he does the palms with the kid again, because that's a cultural thing and that they had. And I thought that's really, I thought to myself, that must be really important to him, because as far as he knows, he's the only one that's left. He says he believes there's more that made it out, but he's never met one. So to get to do a little cultural thing with somebody from his home planet, even if it is a weird dream version of himself from 100 years ago, I imagine it was nice, So he does that, and he leaves his hat with the kid, which would have more relevance if you actually realized he was wearing a hat this entire time. Because every time he's in a machinima cutscene or in-game, he's not wearing a hat. But every time he's in a full cutscene, a full animated cutscene, he's wearing a hat. So I think that's supposed to mean he's actually been wearing a hat this whole time. And they just don't put it in the game because I guess it's too much or something. So he leaves his hat with the kid, and the kid says goodbye, Kakavasha. Which this whole time, the kid has been Kakavasha, he's been Aventurine. But it's just that little confirmation that they both know that each one is themselves, right? The little kid knew Aventurine was him, and Aventurine knew the little kid was also him. So the little kid says goodbye, Kakavasha, and then turns into magical stardust, and the hat blows away. And I'm just like, yo. So I tried to think what that meant, and it just, because he already made closure with his past before he went to go die on the stage. But here he is at death's door, essentially, in death. Big black hole still back there, and he's gonna walk on to the dream death and try to get out of it. So he's really at death, and he's making peace with his past again. And I think the first time before before the stage was he made peace with his past so that he could face his death, in good conscience. And now that he's hit death, he's making peace with his past again to kind of overcome his death wish. To kind of, because now it's like he chose death and he needed to make peace with his past. But I think now he's chosen life, right? I think his little conversation with Acheron helped him get over this death wish thing, get over this thought that he was supposed to be dead, and think about, well, actually, death will come when it comes, when it's supposed to come. What I need to be worried about is my life and what it means and what I'm doing with it. I think she helped him, and so I saw this as him making peace with his past again, but this time choosing life instead. Is that true? Who knows? It's pretty open for interpretation. It's pretty abstract, but I thought it was a nice scene. I thought it was pretty. Oh my god. There's still the two twists. Actually, there's like a half twist that's in between. So this ends, he goes into the distance, little Kakavasha fades into stardust, and they give you like a little quote and some culture literature that I didn't know the reference to. But you get a very short, just black screen scene where Topaz calls up Jade and she says the Aventurine stopped glowing. That could only mean one thing. And Jade's like, oh, he did it. He really did it. And the idea is like, oh, he actually died? Right, because again, they're still playing with it. They're still playing with it. He's dead, but he's probably going to come back. He's probably going to get out of it. And Jade and Topaz are talking. Remember, Topaz is already on Pinacone. And Topaz is like, wait, but this has worked out. The Jade Stone is in the heart of the family. And you're like, oh, they didn't just lend these stones to Aventurine to help him with his plan. There's something important to do with their stones being there ahead of them. And they're going to use them to do something. Their stones are the power of preservation. They're Aventurine just used his super broken one to turn into a big boss, right? Like these are pretty powerful objects that are very closely attached to their owners. So Topaz and Jade. And then Jade's like, all right, Topaz, it's time for the harvest. And she makes all these wild references to harvesting things. And you're like, what? And she's like, I'm going to go, my wine that's actually poison that I'm going to go harvest. And I don't know what they're going to do, but they are still planning on getting Pinacone for the IPC, and they are going to show up. But Topaz was not just there for funsies. She fucking lied to us. She wasn't just there for funsies. She's there to get Pinacone, and Jade's about to show up to get Pinacone too. And Aventurine, I don't think, is out of the picture. So that'll be 3 of them there to get Pinacone for the IPC. And I'm really looking forward to see how that plays out. Then there's the 2 twists. There's a really quick one, and then there's one that's not as quick. I'll just go through them. This video is going to be the longest fucking video. So then we switch perspectives to the Trailblazer, who's also in blackness, and you're like, what's going on? You realize it's the Trailblazer. And I think I jerked my camera and it's distracted me. Whatever. If the camera's slowly been tilting this whole time, it happens. We switch to the Trailblazer and his perspective. He's also in blackness because they were all there when Acheron did her Nihility nuke. So, and you find out, you have a little scene where Trailblazer died and he saw what happens after you die in the dream. He's by himself, sort of. We don't see the rest of the train gang. So I don't know if they all died and they're all going to see the truth. I don't know if Acheron did this on purpose so that they could all see what Aventurine wanted to see. They could all find the truth. They could all figure out what's going on. But at the very least, Trailblazer is there and he is caught by a flame that maybe saved him. And you're like, what? And then all of a sudden the scene materializes and you're floating on some bed in that this giant bed in the middle of the dream, and it's very surreal. And you are there and Sam is there, the metal man Stellaron hunter who was the boss of patch 2.0. And you're like, what? So Remember, we've seen two things with Sam. We've seen one scene where they've described him as a murderer, and all he does is murder, and doesn't have any emotions. He's not even a real person in there. He just is a murder bot. And you're like, okay, I guess all the fan theories were wrong. And then we had a scene with this patch with Sam and Acheron, and Sam says a little bit more. You get the idea that they try to paint him as, oh, maybe he's a tortured soul and he's not just a murder bot. And Acheron says, I know who you are. And you're like, oh, they're really trying to do something with he's not just a murder bot. And at this point, I'm kind of confused because all we've seen him is a murder bot, and then all of a sudden he's just like, oh, but I'm Sag and not really a murder bot. And that's not really enough for me to be like, oh, I believe you now. Like, there's just not enough there. These are very short scenes. There's not enough there, but it's just enough to be like, okay, there's something else going on. I don't know what. And now he shows up with us and the Trailblazer, and he says, you know, Elio said that you and I would, you know, get a bunch of, what did he say? It was a specific phrase. We got a bunch of blessings or something. There'd be good things for us here in Pinacone. And he's like, Elio was right. And then he's like, I don't know people like Elio and Kafka. I don't have special skills like Silverwolf and Blade. I'm only good at the things that villains are good at. You know, the murder bot, right? And he's like, so there's only one way I can show you. And then it goes to a cutscene and he depowers, right? The suit comes off and Firefly is there. Our girlfriend. And she's holding like a thing that presumably turns the suit on and off, and she's got cracks on the side of her face, and then they fade away, and she's like, what does she say? She has like a very short line that's like, this is like this I had to tell you, you know. And that's it. That's the whole scene. That's the twist. It gives you the twist, and it's like, to be continued. And you're like, I guess the fan theories were right. So it's very quick. It's very, nothing's really there yet. You know, I need more. It's made me interested in how these two are related. They gave me a lot of backstory with Firefly. I'm very satisfied with her as a character. We've had just nothing with Sam. I'm not really satisfied with him as a character yet, but now I really want to know his story to see how his story matches up with Firefly's story and what she told us. Because as far as we know with Firefly, she's got a disease where she's literally fading to ether. She's on hospital beds and dying, and one of the only ways she can experience life is in the dream. So you get the idea that in real life she wouldn't even look like Firefly because she'd be half gone. But somehow she's also powering a Metal Man suit and deleting everyone cold-heartedly. It doesn't quite match up. It doesn't, like, is she controlling the suit remotely, right? And she's on a hospital bed. Is she just being a ghost, but like, you know, the ghost can still operate the suit, so that's how she interacts with the world because she couldn't otherwise. I don't know. I have guesses. And why is the Metal Man just a murder bot when Firefly seemed to have a lot more emotional depth to her? Like, how did she get from girl with emotional depth to murder bot man? Like, I don't see the tie-in, and I am excited for them to tell us, because presumably that's what we'll see next. And that's why I said the next patch has a couple different options, because I thought I was really ready for the Acheron patch. But now I'm like, well, now I want the Firefly patch, the Sam patch. Like, what's going on with that? So that's the big reveal, and that's what all the memes have been about, which I kind of figured. It's been a fan theory that, you know, who's in the suit. To me, I never needed anybody to be in the suit. I was happy with the Murderbot. But everybody was like, who's in the suit? And the big fan theory was Firefly was in the suit. I don't know, somebody had matched some colors from something. And so that was the thing. And then after this patch came out, a lot more memes were about Firefly in the suit. And I was like, what did they know? Because they finished the story that I don't know. And even now, Hoyo has released, so it won't be this coming patch here in a couple weeks, but the next patch will have Firefly as the 5-star, and they even showed Firefly with the Sam suit behind her. So yeah, I mean it's right. It's definitely they're the same person, but I don't know how it works yet. So I'm keen on figuring that out. I expect them to tell us that next patch. The final scene. Oh my god, it's been 50 minutes. I'm supposed to be like asleep. It's the final scene is another twist. It's not very long. You see Gallagher in Sunday's mansion. You've been to Sunday's mansion twice now. You've been with Aventurine and Dr. Ratio, and you've been with Acheron and Weld. And once again, we're in the mansion. Aventurine is there. Excuse me. Gallagher is there, and Sunday is there. And Gallagher makes like an offhand comment about, you know, you gotta, whoever lives in this mansion must be paranoid. There's so many traps and stuff. And Sunday's like, yo, you insult me. What are you even talking about? Why aren't you trying to find the murderer? You're supposed to be the head of the Bloodhounds. Why aren't you finding the murderer? It makes me feel like maybe you're in cahoots with the murderer. And Gallagher kind of brushes it off and he says, oh, I've been called a lot of things, but a murderer, you know, I take umbrage to that. That's not very nice. And then he kind of looks at Sunday, and Sunday just stonewalls him. And then Gallagher kind of gets pissed off, and then he goes in harder. I got the feeling that he was trying to goad Sunday into saying something by kind of getting a little bit offended about being called a murderer, and then Sunday stonewalled him, so he went harder. He starts just like, oh, how dare you taking everything from me, and now you're calling me a murderer. I won't stand for this. He makes this big show of it. I thought he was Sparkle, honestly, because like, why is he making this big show of it and whatever? You know, why is he goading Sunday? And then Sunday's like, look, because he brings up the, you know, what's going down at Clock Studios with Aventurine and stuff. And Sunday's like, you think I don't know about that? Who do you think cleared out everybody so nobody would get hurt and stuff? Look, I don't care about that stupid ambassador for IPC. It's whatever. I got my spies, which they kind of, based on the camera work, seem to imply those crows that we've been seeing, or at least the one crow we've been saying. I won't fall for his tricks. I'm more interested in you. And the more I did all this, the more I could get to you, and I could hurt you and your love of the watchmaker, and I could make you pay in blood. And you're like, what? Because you know Gallagher's the one who tells you that the watchmaker is not on the same side as the family, that they had a falling out, that what he seems to imply is the Oak family framed the watchmaker for something bad, and the whole family blames the watchmaker, and the watchmaker gets exiled and then dies in obscurity. But the watchmaker's children, who Gallagher says he is one of, still like fight against the family. They were trying to save the watchmaker for the longest until he died, and that's when Gallagher said he gave up because he knew it was over. But there's also somebody else who's playing the watchmaker right now that's causing all the corruption in the dream, right? So the watchmaker's faction is actively fighting against the family. And here we have Sunday kind of acknowledge that and just like being really kind of mean and, you know, saying he's trying to hurt Gallagher and his watchmaker clan, you know, just because he hates the watchmaker and stuff. This is really important in a second because he calls Gallagher something else that makes you wonder if he is part of the watchmaker clan, but based on this statement right before, Sunday is clearly acknowledging he's still on the watchmaker side. Because then Sunday really does get pissed off. And he's like, I just need to ask you, why the hell did you kill her? I hate you. You piece of shit. You killed my sister. And he says, actually, it's right before that. I'm sorry, I've skipped a little bit. Because right before that, after he says he's trying to hurt the watchmaker, he points out that Gallagher is disguised. And I thought, oh yeah, I got it right. It's Sparkle. he says, no, you are the perfect Gallagher, the perfect family member, and describes little pieces of Gallagher. You know, like the flask on his hip, the scar on his arm, the way he does his tie, the way he does his hair. And he says, you have like all these little pieces are perfect pieces of people who are in the family. And he says, all your little truths are woven together to a big lie. To make the Gallagher, you are not who you are not part of the family. You are not who you say you are. And this is really interesting because when I said I watched it from somebody who had recorded it, and he just calls him, oh, I should have pulled it up. But he just says, you're a fake, you're in disguise. You're lying, essentially. But when I played it today, the voice line still just said you're lying, whatever, that quick line. But the words, the text that, is supposed to match the voice line was like, you're lying, minion of Enigmata. And Enigmata was capitalized. And I'm like, why is that there? And this whole, like, copying little pieces of everybody to make an amalgamation, make a person. Right, Enigma, right? It's this confusing thing that we don't understand. And I'm thinking, is there another Eon at play? Is there another faction at play here, this Enigmata, and that's been hiding as the Gallagher, right? That, has shifted itself like a shapeshifter kind of thing to become this Gallagher made out of pieces of other people of the family. But remember, Sunday had just said that this guy is firmly in the Watchmaker faction and he's trying to punish the Watchmaker faction, which makes me think that perhaps this Enigmata, this minion of, I've forgotten the fancier name, but no, yeah, Enigmata, right? Is it Enigma and Enigma, which whatever. Maybe this Enigmata is tied to the Watchmaker. Maybe the Watchmaker is the Enigmata faction. I don't know. Nobody knows. We won't know. But that's really interesting that Gallagher is not who he claims to be. Remember when it was like really weird because Gallagher told us all this history and we're like, how old are you, Gallagher? Like, how do you know this history? Because he's talking about it like he was there. Like, how can you have been there? This was a very long time ago. And he just makes a joke about how he's 12 or something, and just plays it for a laugh because he's like, actually, I'm a 12-year-old girl, and we all know he's lying, right? It's a joke. Of course, I don't know. Who knows? It was weird. I think it was specifically 13, by the way. So here's this thing. Well, Gallagher's not who he appears to be. There's something going on with Gallagher. This calls into question everything he's told us. Why has he told us it? But Sunday knew he was lying. He was in disguise. But Sunday also said he was still on the Watchmaker's side. So I don't think he was lying about being Watchmaker's children. But I do think he was lying about who he really is. And that's why it was a little weird. How does he know all that? There's something to do with this, minion of Enigmata. There's something to do with that. What that means. Maybe being a child, maybe that's what being a child of the Watchmaker is. But so then Sunday gets really mad and says, why did you do it? Why'd you kill her? And it goes into a cutscene and you see Gallagher and he does his little lighter and everything. And he's like, oh, it's funny, you see everybody thinks they're doing whatever and everybody wants their answers, but really it's just, it's just a cruel trick of fate or something. And then he closes his lighter and you see Sunday, and the shadow behind Sunday becomes very, like, it spreads out and it becomes very sharp and scary looking. And then it cuts back to Gallagher and you see the dream juice get splattered because presumably the death meme just murdered Sunday, like it murdered Firefly, like it murdered Robin, like it murdered everybody. And now it seems like Sunday was right And Gallagher is, if not in control of this death meme, at least on the team that is. And Sunday's now dead too. And you're like, what? And that ends. That's the end. And you're like, what? But again, no one died. What they also proved to us today was no one dies in the dream. So Sunday's not dead. So why is Sunday so mad about his sister dying if people don't die in the dream? Does he just not realize that? That seems silly. He's got a big list of people who've died. They have to know everything about what happened to those people. So, I mean, we're back to the theory that, well, there's just some pretty big consequences to dying in the dream. You're not dead, but, you know, maybe you're in a coma and they don't know how to wake you up. Maybe, like, you're in really bad straits. Maybe you disappear like Aventurine did and they have to go find you, you know? Right? I forgot to mention, but our little conversation with Sam, Sam says he's been trying to get to us and tell us information that we need to know, but he can't. He can't get out, and he's kind of now become one with the place more than he intends to. Does he mean specifically the place after death? So you die, you're not dead, but you're kind of stuck there. Is that what he means? Right? There's all these little hints that, right, you don't die, but it's not great. And of course, now it's happened to the Trailblazer as well. So we'll see how that goes, because that's how he met with Sam. So we'll see how that goes. That's all. These are all the things left hanging in the air. And I kind of got the feeling that Gallagher killed Sunday, not just because he knew his secret, right? But because he was like, tell me, you know, why'd you do it to my sister? And it was kind of one of those moments like, oh, you miss your sister? Well, here, I'll take you to her. Splat, you know? I kind of got that feeling. But it was probably just as he had figured out that Gallagher wasn't who he said he was. So I had hypothesized earlier that the corruption in the dream was not tied to the death meme, that those were two, you know, the corruption of the dream is just the watchmaker just trying to fight against the family, and then this meme is, you know, maybe from someone higher up in the family. There was guesses, you know, from Robin and whatnot, some other power very strong, you know, because there's only a few powers strong enough. Disharmony, so someone really high up in the family, or emanators that can go break the rules in the dream. Like we saw Acheron, that's how she killed Aventurine. That's how Aventurine was almost about to nuke the place because he had emanator powers. Some in the smaller version. You know, maybe this Enigmata is another thing, and it's got, you know, Gallagher's an emanator for it or something. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's the watchmaker is Enigmata, and the corruption in the dream has escalated, and they just are killing people in the dream now. Maybe. Because we don't know who's currently functioning as the watchmaker. We know it's not the real watchmaker, according to Gallagher, who, you know, could also be lying to us. But it's somebody acting, you know, in the watchmaker's stead, because the watchmaker's been long gone. And we still don't know what the watchmaker's legacy is. So all the deaths are like, we still don't really know. There's confirmation that these deaths aren't really killing people, but we don't know what's happening to them. Because it's not normal. They're not like normal now. Something's happened because they died, but they're not dead. They're just dead in the dream. We've killed more people. Aventurine's now dead. Sunday's now dead. Trailblazer's now dead, probably. And presumably maybe the rest of the train gang with him. But they're all in the dream dead, not real dead. You know, Sam is Firefly, and that's it. It was just the poof, and then you're like left wondering. We don't know how those tie in. We don't know what Acheron's doing here. She's after the legacy, but why? Why does she care? Why is she here? Is it just to find a new way to kill the Nihility? Is it a way to maybe try to bring back her friends? You know, there's only so many motives she could possibly have. Maybe she just you know, once she's here, you know, she could have a really strong sense of justice. Now she wants to fix things now that she's here, but that wouldn't have brought her here in the first place. And then why are we here? What does our Stellaron have to do with it? Because Acheron and Aventurine hinted something about our friend's true identity, which is presumably us with the Stellaron. You know, so what does that have to do with anything? What are the fools doing here? You know, what is Sparkle doing? What the hell is up with Sunday? And why was he so mad? Shouldn't he know that, you know, does he really think his sister was dead? Or is he just mad because she's in a coma now or something? And then what the hell's going on with Gallagher? Who is Gallagher? What is the Watchmaker? You know, who is the Watchmaker? What is the Watchmaker's legacy? What is the faction of the Watchmaker? Who is the Death Meme working for? Who is Enigmata? There's just layers. There's just layers. And we're just like, how deep does it go? That's what it is. I hope they can pull it off. This 2.1 was a blast, and I enjoyed it. And I hope they can pull it off by the end. Presumably the next patch is, at the very least, Firefly and Sam's story. Maybe more of the Acheron story. Maybe this whole chapter will be her story. Apparently, Boot Hill's going to be in the next one. Robin's the character banner next one, so maybe she's gonna be in there. I mean, I guess we're gonna find Sunday and Robin again because nobody's really dead. Adventurine's trying to find the secret. Is he gonna come back? Jade and Topaz are gonna enter the scene because the IPC is not giving up. There's a lot of pieces up in the air. It's very exciting. I want to see what happened to all of them. I feel like there's the potential that Hoyo can deliver this and make it really good. It's either going to be very impressive or a big letdown. And I'm hoping for very impressive because it seems like we can get there. Because I had certainly enjoyed 2.1. Except for that dumbass make a drink section that was out of nowhere. It just seemed like it was a tutorial to introduce the event coming up. And I was just like, well, just leave this for the event. Why am I doing this? Everything but that I really liked about 2.1. So I don't know. There was just finale of 2.1. Loved it. The cutscenes were very cool. Acheron, very cool. Character implications, story implications, intriguing, interesting. Got me excited for what's to come. Which, I mean, what else? What else do you want from a piece of a story? You know, piece in the middle of a story. So that's where we are. That's where we are. Super long video. I don't even know if I'm gonna have time to watch this to put it up. I'm gonna have to just put it up. Super long video. My thoughts on 2.1, where I am. I'm gonna play one more day tomorrow on the stream, and maybe we'll talk about this on stream or whatnot, and maybe we can piece something together. We'll probably just take a look at the event, maybe read some of the stuff the wrap up stuff that you get, because it was real late in the day. I didn't have time to go through all this stuff. We read the achievements and whatnot. So, maybe I'll get some pieces out of that. Try the event out, pull on Aventurine, that kind of stuff. That's what we'll do tomorrow. But video's way too long. That's gonna bring us to the end of the video. If you made it to the end, yo, congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for listening. And thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Let me know what you think. Are you excited about 2.1? Did you have fun? Do you have any crazy theories? This is the fun time to do them because no one knows yet, right? So, I don't know. Think about it. Yeah. Thank you for watching. Have yourself a wonderful day, and I will catch you in the next one. See you around.